and welcome to the Vegas Baby podcast. If you've seen our vlogs, this is just going to be more of the same as we explore and discuss everything Las Vegas. Hi, and welcome back to the Biggest Baby podcast. And I am pleased to tell you that it's not just me and Michael this week. We do have a special guest. Now, I was going to say he needs no introduction because I guarantee everybody who's listened to this podcast has watched this person at some point or another and enjoys his vlogs as much as we do. So without further ado, let me welcome Mr. Matt Bridger.
Oh, hi, Lindsay. How you doing? Hi, Michael. Thanks for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. We're absolutely delighted that you've come along and joined us because, you know, we're sick of the sound of each other's voice, to be honest.
I know the
So this is our third one. Obviously, we've done the first two. They're very much finding our feet. It's all very new to us. So bear with us. Obviously, Michael's on the technical side, and my forte is generally just rambling and being very confused through the whole thing.
I've been very impressed with the first two. You guys have a great dynamic. So I've listened to both, and they've been awesome. So hopefully I can at least keep the standard to the same level rather than decrease it in any way.
I'm absolutely certain.
I'm amazed, Matt, that we're still friends because we learned how to actually play slots by watching your things, your vlogs. So technically,
I don't know.
Well, technically, you've cost us thousands.
Exactly.
So,
Definitely.
Well, at least you know what you're doing as you lose the thousands, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We know what hasn't arrived on the screen, or we know what we were looking for and that didn't land. But yeah, no. To be fair, Michael's right. Like before our first few times in Vegas, we didn't gamble. We were terrified. To be perfectly honest, we just did not know where to start. We'd never been really to a casino at home. We were just terrified. We wouldn't have a clue. And we just thought it was going to be, we're going to stick this money and we're going to lose it immediately and walk away and think, why did we do that?
Which is still what happens, by the way.
Yeah, most of the time. But yeah, watching your vlogs.
I think most people do. I think if you're a slots player, you assume everyone knows, but there are so many variables to these things with the various games. And it can be quite an overwhelming experience as a new visitor, I would imagine, walking into a casino and saying, "Right, I've got my a few $100. What the hell do I do?" So yeah, it is. You do need a bit of instruction occasionally. I think if you're new, for sure. I
mean, we literally didn't even know. Like, to me, before I watched your vlogs, I thought free spins was like a bad thing. Like, I thought, I'd rather have like a cash win. And then if something landed on free spins, I'd be like, oh, they're fobbing us off. Whereas now I'm like, free spins. I just didn't get it, like. It's weird that how we've gone, and it is all down to you. I'm blaming you completely. How we've gone from total novices to now, like, we just cannot wait to get there and get back and play the slots. Yeah, definitely. So what I am hoping, Matt, is that you may be able to help me with this next segment because if you have listened to the first two, you'll know that Michael plays a Vegas sound and at some point, I'm meant to guess what it is, and they're ridiculously hard. They're too short, and he gives me no clues other than saying it's a casino slot, and that's it. So I need all the help I can get, to be honest.
Well, the only thing I would say is that the first two episodes, I didn't get anywhere near either of them like you. So,
well, I have made this one a lot easier, and I'd actually mean it this week. It's not like where I claim that it's instantly recognisable and I'm basically lying just to wind up Lindsay. I have legitimately made things easier this week. It's longer. I know that Matt's going to get this. I'm just not sure if Lindsay will.
Oh, well, there you go. I've got no pressure on me. It's all on your shoulders.
Exactly, it's all on Matt. The spotlight's firmly on Matt. Can he get it? So the pressure. So here we go. So what's the sounds?
I do recognise that.
But can you place it?
Time.
Yeah, I know the sound exactly, but I can't place it. Oh my god, that's crazy! It's a really well-known one.
It is.
Let's play it again.
Now that sounds like something going round and round and round and round and round in the background. Is that not like a wheel of fortune or something that spins? It sounds like something
my
going
word.
round.
Oh my God, I can't believe I don't know this.
Well,
Right,
you
this
do
is-
know it. This is the thing.
No, I do know it, but I can't place it. Sorry, one more time, Michael, if you don't mind. Right, it's to do with high stakes. It's Lightning Link high stakes. But I can't quite think which part of high stakes. But it's definitely that game.
Well, I wouldn't like to confirm at this stage, but you're not a million miles away, certainly.
Well, look, that's the closest anyone's got to guessing.
Yeah.
Mine are usually dinosaurs or tigers, and that's about it. That's as close as I get.
You get very fixated on the animals.
So if it's high stakes, if you think about it, with high stakes, it's either the suitcases land, don't they? With high stakes,
I think it's the bonus where you have the big one in the middle, and it's come around and it's hit something on the middle reel of that big reel.
That does sound, yeah, I know what you mean, because you try and get the chip, don't you, in the middle? There's like the middle, and then there's the night. Is it the 6 down either side?
I don't think it's the chip. I think it's where it's showing you the lines of whatever's matched up.
Right.
That's my guess.
Well, we shall find out later.
You know what it is, though? It's just nice to have someone on my team, Matt. That's what I'll say. Instead of him sat there with all of the knowledge, and I think he would quite happily let this go on to like podcast number 300, and I've never got one right. That's what he would love.
I'm thinking about doing an entire episode which is just you trying to work out what a sound is.
I tell you, a Vegas quiz with sounds though is a great idea. Rather than just one, it is actually a very good idea. Maybe you should have some teams or something. I don't know.
Maybe we could turn it into a whole kind of vlog podcast episode thing by itself.
Yeah,
absolutely,
definitely. Right, well, thank you for that support. Hopefully you're right, because I'd love to get one up on him. Even though it's not me, even if you guessed that right, Matt, that's one for my team. That's what I'm doing.
I was going to say, how were you involved in this, Lindsay?
I'm just claiming the win.
You are.
Right?
Yeah.
Team Lindsay and Matt versus Michael, basically.
Yeah. And you know what? If you want somebody on your side for a Vegas sound or anything to do with Vegas, who better than to have Matt Bridger on your side, to be perfectly honest.
Definitely.
Right. So now we would normally go into some news. Any Vegas news that have caught your eye. So as the guest, Matt, would you like to start?
Yeah, actually, this bit of news is really interesting to me. I don't know about you guys, but certainly over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, the number of messages I get about sort of hand pays and tax on hand pays and how do you claim the tax back when you've had it taken off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is literally the question I probably get asked more than any other. Help could be at hand because there's a slot machine that basically bypasses the hand pay element, which I read about the other day. The slot machine is called Double Jackpot Blazing Sevens with Quick Hit. Handily typed.
It rolls off the tongue.
It does,
rolls off the tongue, yeah.
Jackpot Blazing Sevens with Quick Hit. It's made by Light and Wonder, which is formerly Scientific Games. Now, currently, it's only in a high limit version, but basically, it's a normal 3-reel game with quick hits and sevens and all the rest of it. But basically, when you get the bonus, you get a certain number of spins at a bonus wheel, a bit like Wheel of Fortune. And it has segments of $1,000, $500, $100, or there is one segment of 0. Now, you would think, well, every other one it's going to hit a 0, but that's not the case. It actually only hits the 0 once every 999 spins.
That would be our one.
Yes, exactly.
That would be us. Yeah.
You're basically guaranteed anything between 5 and 25 spins, depending on what limit you're playing, what denomination you're playing, to hit 1,000, 500, or 100. Now, the way that they do it so that you get away with no hand pay is obviously the segments are under 1,200, being 1,000, 500, or 100. But secondly, you actually wager your normal stake on each spin. So in effect, it's like winning an amount of money, but it's not all in one. So if you've got 5 spins and you win $5,000, you've wagered each one of those 5 spins. Therefore, you bypass the requirement for a hand pay, even though you've won $5,000. Isn't that ingenious?
It is. I'm surprised it's taken this long. for someone to figure out how to actually, because that's actually quite simple, but it's beautifully
really
simple.
And so you're basically you're just buying, well, not free spins, as we were talking about before we started recording. You're buying spins that aren't free, but they are guaranteed to win decent amounts of money.
But what would happen if on one of those spins you got the over the hand pay amount?
But you can't.
You can't. Because
you could. They're all under hand pay amount. Sorry,
yeah. They're basically it's either 1,000, 500, or 100. That's the only segment you get.
That's bloody brilliant,
isn't it?
What a great idea that is.
Yeah. So that's I think it's only come out in the last month or two. So whether or not is
this the one which is only in Circa or Golden Gate or somewhere? It's just in one of them.
Yeah, I can't recall what casino it said it was in. I just thought the whole. I mean, I know there's ongoing talk about the hand pay amount increasing to 5,000, but that's been muted for a long, long time. But assuming that doesn't happen, you can't really see the IRS signing that off anytime soon, really. But
no.
If this takes off and they then decide to do it maybe on lower, normal denomination games, that could be incredible. Really good.
You'll know it, Michael. It'll be the one with the massive queue behind it. People trying to. It'll be like all the Americans and the Canadian, everyone who pays tax basically will just be queued behind that one machine.
Totally.
Because we don't get hand pays. It's not something that would really affect us. We got one, and we've had to go through this whole thing where we've had to claim the kind of tax back to try and get the item. And it's been
have you completed that process yet or not?
It's underway, so we've done our bit. We're just waiting for it to kind of arrive. But it was the one that we got in the group poll. It was like, and we knew we were going to take the hit because we knew that it was our card and we didn't have an ITIN. And so it was one of those things where you really want the hand pay, but the other thing is actually we're going to have to kind of sort that out between us afterwards. But yeah, so we found a tax basically firm here, and then we had to send everything over to him and the paperwork we got from the casino, and we had to pay an amount up front, and then he's gone and done his bit, and then he sent that off. So apparently we should be getting our ITIN, my ITIN, and a check for the amount that it was that they took us, in the next few weeks. Basically, that's kind of what we've had to get to.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you did a vlog on exactly what you did to get that money back, you'd get a hell of a lot of views, because I don't know what the process is these days. When I did it, it was all manual. I went over to the tax office downtown and sat in a queue and basically handed over my passport and spoke to the guy, and then got it through the post, 6 months later or whatever. But it's the one thing in Vegas, being a Brit. If you've played for a week and then on your last day you've won $1,201 dollars, and you then get taxed 30% because you gambled in the wrong place. How pissed off would you be? It's not great. So
well, that was the thing, because we obviously did two group pulls. One was downtown and one was the Strip, and we were talking beforehand to the casinos, saying what if this and what if that. We just wanted to have everything organised, and typically if we'd got the hand pay on the Strip one, they would have done all the paperwork for us. It just is typical. We got it on the downtown one, but what I'm glad about is that it just means that hopefully when we're there this year, we've got our ITIN with us and we're kind of all set and it's sorted now. I don't think you have to. Is it every 3 years? I think it lasts for 3 years, I'm sure, at a time.
Yeah, I think my one now is it's dated actually 2019, but there wasn't any problem this last time. But actually, if you gamble in MGM now, interestingly. When I won that hand pay on the Boost Gold Buffalo game, I didn't have my passport on me, and I thought, I'm going to have to leg it back to Vdara and get it. But they basically, MGM Rewards have now linked your previous documentation, i.e. your passport and your ITIN number, to your player's card on their system. So basically, all you have to do is hand over your player's card. They go away, come back, and give you 100%. It couldn't be easier. You literally there's no requirement now to carry it around. So that really is a huge incentive to gamble at MGM properties over the Caesars ones, and unless it's Caesars Palace, which is the only one that I'm aware of that actually does it all for you.
Yeah, Oh, that's brilliant. I tell you what, if we do that vlog about how we claimed it back, we should be on commission from the tax from the tax firm that we're going to recommend. We should we have a 10% of everybody's claims, please.
Out of interest, how much did they charge you for the service? Do you mind
It was quite a lot. I mean, because our hand pay was just over the hand pay limit, like it was, so we actually we asked 2 or 3 different places, and most of them were down in London, and we were like, well, it's a bit of a journey for us to get down to London if we have to hand our paperwork over and everything down there. But a few of them came back and said the value that you'd get back wouldn't be worth the value of you paying for it. Right. So we were like, well, I know, but we want the ITIN at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? If it's even if we don't make any money off it, even if we just basically pay in the amount of that we're going to get, it's still worth it to get the ITIN, and then we don't have to worry about it. So it was a few £100 we paid. Mm-hmm. But like I say, now we kind of said, well, that check's useless. That money's gone from our point of view. We paid it, so the only way to get it back is to pay this money out and get it back. So it was kind of we just weighed it up, didn't we?
Yeah, and as you say, once you've got it, you can relax. You can just gamble where you want, and hopefully.
Well, that's clearly what's been holding us back from winning all these hand pays, Matt.
Obviously, yeah.
I do find that. I mean, I went like 12 years or something without one, and I thought I'd never hit one, and since I hit the first one, I don't know. It's just happened quite regularly. It's weird.
That was the Walking Dead one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was. But even that, and you could say, well, I've upped my gambling, and I have a little, yeah. Well, a lot, not a little. But if you look at the Boost Gold one, because it was the 4 game machine, and it was just a single game out of the 4. It was only 120 a bet on that for 1,700 or 1,400, whatever it ended up being. It's. I mean, that was a small stake for what it is.
Maybe how sometimes you say when you go into a casino, like if you go in and you feel very kind of hopeful or optimistic, or you feel very confident that you're going to hit something, kind of the aura is different, and you always feel like you win in those ones.
Yeah, no, I think it's more a case of if you don't care about losing it, that's when you win. It's when when money's a little bit tight and you're actually quite fearful of losing it. That's when you seem to lose and lose and lose and lose.
I mean, it makes no difference, does it? But it shouldn't make any difference, but it just does.
God, we can go into superstitious gambling all night long, but I genuinely think, firstly, there's an old saying, scared money never wins, right? I think that's true. If you're down to your last $300 and you need that to keep going, guarantee you won't get anything at all. Or if you go for a high limit and it's not something you normally play, you can pretty much guarantee you'll run through it with nothing. But if you're confident and you're sort of strolling around, and you almost sort of feel like you own the place a bit. You've had a good night, and I remember there was one night where I'd gone to Resorts World, couldn't hit a thing. I just didn't feel comfortable in there. I was with Danny, Vegas Introvert at the time. He dropped me back off at Plaza. I literally sort of stomped in, all sort of Billy Big Bollocks. Sat down on 2 machines and won about 1,500. It was. I felt comfortable and at ease. I don't know. It was. I do think sometimes how you feel does make a difference. But
you say that, but I've sat down with Lindsay. It was at Park on our last trip, and all she told me was, "I've got this." Over and over again. I've got this. Don't worry, I've got this. And we must have lost about 200 in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, but if you remember, and I remember actually you commenting on this, Matt, we'd been out the night before. I'd had a ridiculous amount of vodka Red Bulls, and I can't do vodka Red Bull. Like Red Bull, I can't really do energy drinks or caffeine or anything like that. Like it sends me crazy. I can't sleep or anything. When I woke up the next day, I think I'd had like an hour's sleep or an hour and a half sleep, and I was like shaking. I was like, I just had no control over anything. I was really giddy. I was giggly, and as we sat at the Dragon Inn, we were actually waiting for our breakfast reservation. At the I can't remember what it was called, the pantry or something. Anyway, I can't remember. But we were sat, and I just said, let's just put some money in here. And I was super confident, cool as you like, I've got this kind of thing. And we and I mean, it's the worst vlogging we've ever done because I had the camera in one hand and totally giddy and giggles in the other hand, and the camera's just shaking everywhere. Like you just can't see anything, and all you can hear is me like ridiculously laughing my head off in the background. And we just proceeded to just keep losing money one after another. And so I think sometimes confidence maybe works against it. It's certainly me anyway.
Well, that last night you had, I can't remember if it was that same trip. Was it that same trip?
It was the March one. Was it the March one?
Where you were literally on your way to the airport, and you then upped the bets to. Well, you were doing high limit. Let's not beat about the bush, and you couldn't stop winning for that period. Those are the sessions you dream of, and that was great vlogging because that really was good to just see someone sort of go into unknown territory and it pays off. You know, that's those are the money shots, really, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
That was really interesting that way. We were also talking before about the whole hand pay thing. That was a case of if we'd won a hand pay then, we would not have had time to get it all sorted before we left. And I think in the end, the win was 1,180 or 1,170. That was literally exactly what you would want.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was brilliant. And that was me pushing. I was like, because we never play high limits, you know, and we were on the way home and we'd already had a good trip, actually. We already were going home with like, you know, a couple of $1,000 left over. And we were like, oh, this is a great trip. So I was like, you know, let's just push it a little bit. And then when we were hitting the big amounts, it was just brilliant. We loved it. We'd like more of that, please.
The fact is, you didn't have time to spend it, so it's literally everything just goes in the bag. You're on the plane, and you know Vegas has basically guaranteed you'll come back after that, haven't they?
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that machine you just talked about there, that guy kind of guaranteed gets away. You know that kind of, not the hand pay issue. That sounds really good, and it definitely sounds like it's something that, you know, if it works and people love it, that they'll make more variations of that in every kind of style that you want.
Well, they do. I mean, they have it on a $5 denomination. Apparently, I'm not sure how many $5, how many credits you have to go per spin. But if I'd see it, I might give it a go. We'll see next time.
What do you mean, might? You know how well you're going to.
I wouldn't mind giving it a go. I mean, it sounds interesting.
But the thing is, though, is that the 1,200 limit is ridiculously low anyway. I mean, I can understand it being, 40 years ago, but we pay so much more for everything else. So why does our tax threshold not rise with the rest of inflation?
I find the whole the fact that Americans have to pay tax on gambling winnings just obscene. I mean, basically, it's just a tax on sin, isn't it? That's basically what it is.
Having too much fun. We need some of that.
Yeah, the sin tax. I mean, it's it's they're not going to give you a tax rebate, if you lose, are they? It's just wrong in anyone's book. I just I mean, at least that's what Brits don't do. Our government doesn't do a lot right. But one thing it doesn't do is taxes on gambling winnings. So
anyway.
What's the space?
So Matt, would you call yourself a selfie person? Do you like to take a selfie?
Not really, no.
No, me neither. I mean, Lindsay, you love a good selfie, don't you? But the Gateway Arch down, next to the Strat, they realised that they built it without a kind of little like islands in the middle of the road. So tourists were basically wandering into the middle of the road to take selfies with it. What they've done is they've built a little observation deck, they've called it, but it's just a little raised pavement really on the kind of side of the road, which they're now asking people to go there instead to take their kind of photos with it.
That's unbelievable, actually. I mean, I've never stopped by it. I mean, I've seen it as I've driven past, but if they've actually designed that, bearing in mind that they know it's going to be a tourist attraction like the regular sign is, I mean, well, sack the planner, that's all I can say.
Well, this whole thing costs, I think, 6.5 million. And, when I look at it, I immediately can't understand what cost that amount of money.
No.
But them to have spent that much and still not get it right. It's remarkable, really.
That really is. And I can imagine people running around, trying to take photos, I really can. I mean, you would. You would if you had a few drinks, anyway.
Yeah, people love to get something in the background, though, don't they? They love to get like, where they are or whatever else. So you'd think really nowadays it's just kind of a part of society, isn't it? That has to be taken into consideration. It's like a lot of people say that the best view of New York's actually on the opposite corner, isn't it? Which is actually not many people go there. They tend to go between MGM Grand, past New York, and then to Excalibur, like that way. But actually over the road, where
Tropicana.
Oh no, yeah. If you go to Tropicana, down literally down to road level, that is a shot there. I mean, that really is a fantastic shot. But it is a bit. It looks close, but as with everything, but it is a trek, particularly when the escalator's not working going up, as always at that bit. You've got to traipse up there, and then you've got to traipse all the way around. So, but that is 100% the shot for New York, yeah, definitely.
Well, we've not been to the Strat for absolutely years, and we've again, like you, we've only seen that new sign by driving under it when we've gone downtown. So, we've certainly not got a selfie there yet, but we might.
No, we might. Well, you might. I certainly won't be taking selfies anywhere.
I have a choice.
I had legitimately never taken a selfie in my life until I met you. Now I've got a very well-practiced selfie face.
Whenever I do one, it's normally with Suzanne, and they're always bloody awful. We always take about 10, and we just think, oh, this is terrible. Yeah, you try and
I have this
or down. I don't know. It's just ridiculous. We're terrible.
I have this nasty habit of bearing in mind it's a selfie, so I know when I'm going to press the button. I blink all the time. The amount of selfies I have with my eyes closed, you just beggars belief. I don't know how I do it.
That's a fairly fundamental point of a good selfie, though, Lindsay. Have your eyes open.
It's crazy. Anyway, my bit of news was David Blaine. So for people who don't know, he has a show at Resorts World. We've never seen it, but it's something actually I would probably go and see. I'm not big on magic and illusion. I tell you why, because I get annoyed that I don't know how they've done something. It irritates me when I can't work out how they've done something. But anyway, he's got a show, and apparently this week he fell. He has a stunt where he falls 90 feet.
80
feet. And he lands on cardboard boxes, which I don't think is particularly comforting. But anyway, he's dislocated his shoulder by falling on it. And then all the team had to run on stage and pop his shoulder back in the middle of the show. And he then carried on with the rest of the show.
Wow.
It's a bit shocking, but it's kind of even weirder or funnier when you read that it's not his first injury doing the show. Like he's also had apparently there's another thing where he has to slam his hand down on paper cups and there's like an ice pick underneath and he got it wrong and slammed his hand down and cut all of his hand.
Oh my God.
What was the other injury? There's another injury.
He nearly blacked out because he drowns.
He nearly blacked out because he does this thing where he's in a water container and he has to hold his breath. Apparently, he nearly blacked out a few weeks ago. And you just kind of think,
I don't mind him.
Yeah. No, I do, but is he fit for he seems very kind of, I don't know, Mr. Beanish. There's quite a lot of injuries going on there.
Yeah, I think that he's just generally estimated the power of a cardboard box. Because if I'm falling 80 feet, I'm not relying on a cardboard box to kind of save my life,
No, I think that's true.
I think out of all of the illusionists, then he would be the one that I would say, yeah, we'll go and see. Now, the only other one we've ever gone to see in Vegas is David Copperfield. And we did it. It was more of a, is he going to be around much longer? He's like the Mr. Vegas, isn't he, in shows? And we kind of said, let's do it just so we can say we've done it, so that we've gone to see it. But we quite enjoyed it. But it was very. He's a very unusual man, David Copperfield, and he was a mixture of really kind of nerdy and introverted, and then the next minute he would be all big smiles and jazz hands, and it was a weird mix.
Mm.
Yeah, we went. I mean, Suzanne and I went to see him, and we were staying at Tropicana at the time. And I think we really went because it was the closest show across the road, And I'll be honest, I thought he was just a relic from the 80s, but I did actually end up sort of enjoying it. I didn't hate it,
No.
I've also seen Lance Burton. Did you ever see him at Monte Carlo?
No.
He wasn't very good. It was very sleight of hand, close up magic. A lot of it with dubs and all that shit, And I wasn't that impressed. And then I saw with Colin, I saw Chris Angel, who actually, I know he gets a lot of bad press. I actually quite liked it. I thought it was quite good.
Like I say, I think I spend too much time trying to work out how they did it. Instead of just actually enjoying the spectacle.
That's what it is. It's a spectacle. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think we would go and see David Blaine. I think he's probably one that we would go and see.
Yeah, well, I think he's one that's kind of on our list. I think that there's a lot of the Resorts World, isn't there, which seems to have put a lot behind the kind of shows, probably because it's kind of on the north end of the strip and try to give people reason to actually go there.
Is he there on a long-term engagement, do you know? Like sort of years, or is it?
It's certainly most of this year, but it's in kind of clumps of 3 weeks here, and then in 4 weeks he'll do another 3 weeks and that kind of thing. I think that he's probably going to line up with one of our trips, so we'll probably go and see him, and hopefully he'll survive the show, the kind of shows until then.
Well, we went to see Bryan Adams that time, and that's not an illusionist show, and we still got a bit of a show beforehand with that woman falling down the stairs and delaying the show for a good hour and a half.
A lot of people fall down in Vegas, don't they, when you think about it?
But actually, we credit that night with the night that it went on so late, it was delayed that long, that we were meant to be going for food and we couldn't get for food, so we ended up in snacks in Mirage because it was the only place that was open, and actually it's now Michael's favourite place to eat, the best burger in Vegas, he says. So it was all thanks to that woman falling down the stairs.
There you go.
And actually that bit of news that we just talked about there with David Copperfield leads us on to what we wanted to talk about a lot today. So that day that we actually went to see David Copperfield, we were walking to see that show when we were stopped by Fox 5 News, and we were asked about the whole COVID pandemic. So it's quite fitting because Michael put that on our social media this week because it was 3 years to the day that we were stopped in the street by Fox News and asked about it. So I think this is what we wanted to have a bit of a chat about today, isn't it?
Let me just play a clip first, if you don't mind, from one of your vlogs, Matt, which I've shamelessly stolen for the purposes of this podcast.
When I basically got on the plane on Wednesday the 11th, I was, apart from being asked the questions about whether I've travelled to Iran, China or Italy in the last 30 days, there was no real mention of coronavirus particularly. Obviously, as soon as I landed, we had the Trump announcement. We then had, obviously, the European ban as a result of that. We had the UK ban. Then everything just started closing down pretty much behind me because as I checked out of Mirage, MGM Resorts closed. As I checked out of Cosmo, that closed. And then as I checked out of Plaza, that closed. Add that to the fact that I was probably one of the last people to come and complete their full holiday in Vegas before the flight stopped. And even when I went back via McCarran, as I took off from McCarran to LAX, very shortly after that, somebody in air traffic control came down with the virus, so they closed the whole airport down as well. So there were no flights from Vegas shortly after my one either. So one way or another, it was literally me running around Vegas with everything closing up behind me.
So that was obviously 3 years ago, pretty much to the day, I would say.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Just to give a little bit of kind of context, we were all there together for probably about 3 hours. We would just come into the end of our trip. We left on the day that you arrived in Vegas, that trip. Yeah. We had a drink, and I remember us talking at the time. I think that was March the 11th. And we were kind of all saying, this kind of a COVID thing, it's all going to kind of blow over. There's much ado about like nothing at all. It's a media storm. And then we obviously came home, and we were at the airport when Trump was then making the announcements about, the borders closing and all of this. Then we arrived back home in the UK, which was completely different. And then obviously you carried on, and Vegas, as you said, started to close around you.
Yeah. It was. Well, when I got on the plane, as I said in that little clip, it was those three questions, and everyone got on the plane, and it was a normal Vegas flight. There wasn't any mention, any whispers about COVID or any thoughts that anything would change short term. And even I think from memory, I mean, it's very difficult to almost remember pre-COVID, isn't it? It's like a different life. But from what I recall now, I sort of had written it off a bit like bird flu, where there's a few stories on the TV, and but nothing really it never really amounts to much. And I can't really recall exactly what we spoke about when we met up, but I wouldn't imagine it was all about COVID at that point, was it? Really, I don't think.
No.
But one thing I do remember is it was the following day when I woke up. Literally, my phone was just the messages and everything. It had all kicked off while I'd been asleep. And it was all then a completely different story, pretty much overnight from the day from when I landed and met you guys for the first time. And then there were various things on Twitter about there was quite, I can't remember which channel it was, but there was an account that had said that Mirage was closing. They then denied it. It was all hearsay and whispers, and it was actually quite busy at that point. But it soon started unraveling very, very quickly, to the point where I remember I was meeting Rob and Drew Benet, Rob Gocious and Drew Benet, on the Saturday night, I think it was. I can't remember what day it was I flew in, but it was about the third or fourth day anyway. And Richard Wilk, I was due to interview Richard Wilk for the first time at the tail end of the holiday, and he messaged me saying, "Oh, do you fancy coming down to the D?" And he laid on a fantastic stretch limo and all of that. And I think it was basically his way. Obviously, he knew I was going to vlog it, and he wanted to show that downtown was open for business and raring to go. And it was a Saturday night. There was, it was around that main stage. We went out. There's like a seating area where I think it's Derek Stevens' personal bit, where you literally, it's almost like you sit there and watch the performers and everything else. And I've got a couple of selfies with Richard and stuff, with a massive crowd in the background on that Saturday night. And he said, "Yeah, we want to just send the message that we're open. It's not going to stop us. Blah 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 blah." Fantastic night. Met up with loads of people. Drunk huge amounts. In fact, that was the first time I hit the take off when I should have hit gamble on double top dollar. But anyway, but yeah. So and then when I finally got downtown to see Richard, then. I was supposed to meet him, and then he couldn't make the initial time for our interview. And and this was about 3-4 in the afternoon. And again, there was still no whispers. Downtown apparently was still staying open. And then literally, it was right midnight tonight. Everything closes, and he only knew at 4:00 that day.
Wow. Because there is this idea that Vegas is immune to everything. Which is part of the reason why we kind of love it. It's like a complete, whatever is happening in the real world, it feels like Vegas doesn't get touched by it. And we certainly felt that when we went there. We obviously we were there for my birthday, and we got engaged on that trip, and we almost saw it as a little kind of haven away from the kind of, the mounting talk of COVID back on. Because when we arrived, it was, Lindsay, I'm sure that you can recall better than me, but there were kind of whispers about it by then, but there wasn't anything else than that.
Yeah, certainly before we left, it was very much, it's happening, but it's happening on the other side of the world. And, we've got to keep an eye on it, but that's kind of it. And I remember thinking before we went, all we were bothered about is let's just get to Vegas. It was just kind of let's hope they don't stop flights before we go. But we never really thought anything else of it. But we were just saying that actually when we got on the flight, there was an old couple sat beside us, and they wore masks the whole way. And at the time, masks weren't a thing. Nobody was wearing masks. And we kind of thought, oh, they look a bit unusual to sat there and wearing masks for 10 hours, with these. And we were like, oh, it's a bit extreme, isn't it, kind of thing? And not knowing what was coming in a week's time or 2 weeks' time when everybody would be wearing masks and it would be the norm. So yeah, but we were picking up on things that were happening back home towards the end of the holidays. So there was talk about the buffets closing, which is what we were asked by Fox News. How do you feel about the buffets closing? And at the time, we were on this deal with Cosmo where we got the free Wicked Spoon buffet every morning. So that hadn't shut down. So we weren't affected by it. We were still going and, stuffing our faces with Wicked Spoon buffets every day. And they were saying, the Wynn's closing, and then Caesars was closing buffet, and we were like, all right, well, okay. So then we got asked that question. And the one thing I do remember, I was saying to Michael before, was I remember everybody, I was just on Facebook or Twitter or something, and I remember people posting some pictures of the supermarket shelves back home. And I remember people talking specifically about how they couldn't get toilet roll back home. And I remember when we packed, I literally said to Michael, should we pinch some Cosmopolitan toilet rolls in case when we get home there's no toilet rolls on the shelf? And that was just one of those surreal moments that I would never pinch toilet roll from a hotel. It just wouldn't even occur to me. But I thought, maybe we might need this toilet roll if we get home and there's like no toilet roll anyway. And it was only that kind of thing that was starting to, it was weird. But on the day we actually met you, Matt, that was the day that they said that the first case of COVID had been found in Las Vegas. And it had been found in the Mirage, but it was by a lady who'd left. She wasn't in Vegas anymore, but she'd been in the Mirage. So
that was it. That was the first rumor about them closing came from. I remember now. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but we were literally, as it came out, the three of us were sat drinking in the Mirage. It was like, of all the hotels to be in, it was the first case. It was like, we were just sat at the centre bar, on the sports bar, just having a few drinks and thinking, well, this is a bit crazy. But I was saying to Michael, look, I was torn. So there was a big bit of me thinking, wouldn't it be great if we had to stay in Vegas for a few more days till this all blew over? I was torn between half that and half thinking, actually, this looks like it's quite serious and we probably should get home and be with family. And, it was that little bit of... But we had that luxury because we were leaving, whereas we felt for you because you just arrived and all of a sudden you were like in the complete unknown. It was like, what the hell is going to happen around me?
It really was. I mean, it sounds throwaway, but it literally was surreal. I mean, I one thing I do remember is I for the first time in my life, I heard the term social distancing in Vegas. And that was because I was at the Plaza by this time, and they started talking about social distancing. And I went into Golden Gate, and there is a video of me walking around Golden Gate showing it, where they had every other machine switched off. And at the time, I just thought, this is nuts.
Yeah.
Why does that make you safe? It's one chair's width, and they brought that in very quickly, and that was you would think at the time it was like, right, look, we're dealing with it. You can only get. I mean, the fact that you crossed when you got up from the seat doesn't seem to matter. But it's so the whole social distancing thing I couldn't get my head around. And I also remember, towards the end of it, it was all about, do I have a flight home? That was more the worry, because it kept getting cancelled, and then they would put me on another one, and then that got cancelled, and of course you couldn't phone anybody because it was chaos. You imagine how many people were trying to phone about trips 3 months in advance, let alone people that are actually stranded or potentially stranded. And I remember phoning Suzanne a couple of days before the end, and she said, "Oh, by the time you get home, we'll probably be locked down." And I said to her, I remember saying to her, "What the hell does lockdown mean?" And she said, "Well, you can't do anything." And I remember saying to her, I said, "Well, how the hell can they enforce that?" I mean, hell. But I genuinely couldn't, in my brain, compute how that could happen. How can you stop people going about their business?
Because it was something which was completely new to everyone. It was like something that you couldn't even imagine. Because it was the opposite of everything that every other day that we've lived through our whole lives.
Yeah.
It was like a movie. I mean, I know a lot of people have said it was like a movie, but it literally was like a movie. Yeah. I mean, I remember getting home and having to kind of queue outside of the local shop to get into the local shop.
Yeah.
And it was just weird.
What I thought was really weird about actually Vegas was when you could see, obviously, people who were local, and so they were there anyway. were like walking up the main strip road, like the road, they're actually walking up the road because there wasn't a car around and there wasn't another person around, and it was like apocalyptic. Like the vision looked like that, like there was one person on the whole of the Vegas Strip. It was just kind of like, you just felt like this. You hope that you never see anything like that for the rest of your life, don't you? You hope, because what makes Vegas so brilliant and so special is the busyness and the craziness and all of that. It just was weird.
Well, plus the fact that they would pretty much let any event happen and still allow the gambling to continue. So to get to the point where they've actually they have shut down gambling. And we were literally chased out of Plaza saying, no more money in that machine now, by security. And it's like, could you ever imagine any casino employee telling you not to put any more money in a slot machine? It's just nuts. Even that last day, and this, I had to remove this clip off my vlogs because there was a copyright thing with the music. But I felt so sorry for them. And I had a whole thing about this, which I couldn't show in the end. But they walked into their jobs on that last day, 16th of March or whatever it was. They had no idea. And because of the labour rules in America, a lot of them were just laid off on the spot. You imagine that? We were cashing our last tickets in, and they were telling us, we've got no job from tomorrow.
Yeah. It's awful, really.
There
was no security. Yeah. There was no security for them whatsoever. It was literally, we're closing down. That's it, you're laid off. And because of the contracts they've got, there's no redundancy or severance payment or anything like that. It really was just brutal. We've made that decision. That's it. And all of these people went home, crazy.
Yeah. I still think now, one of the things that about how it's changed is that they haven't necessarily replaced all of those staffing levels, have they? There's still a shortage based from the decisions that they made then and how people left and thought this could happen again and where's my security, and it kind of gave people a real sharp shock, I think, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think even Plaza now, I must admit, the last time I was there, they said they would do the room every day. It never actually ended up happening. And before that, up until this most recent trip, they've always said you need to call 24 hours in advance to book it for the following day. And I think in reality, that's still the situation there. And it's, they I don't know why they're saying that's, but it's basically because they haven't got enough staff. It's as simple as that, even now. So I think they're in the same boat as a lot of the world with various jobs that they can't fill, as a result of COVID, and people have got different ones or changed careers or whatever. But,
so I was going to ask, Max. Obviously, you were there. As you said, in that Vegas was closing down behind you almost. So how did the hotels handle in terms of asking people to leave and all this? Were people allowed to stay until the end of their kind of book trip, just not use anything? Or
yes, I'm not sure how long, but I know Aaron, a guy that we met. I met with Rob and Drew that night when Richard took us down in the limo. He was going home the day after me, and they'd allowed him to stay in the hotel, but obviously all of the gaming and restaurants and bars were all shut down. So he was allowed to go until his go home date, but obviously there was nothing to do. I don't know. I'm not even sure what he did for food, because I guess you've got to go to I don't know. I genuinely don't know what he did for food, actually, because there was nothing open. But he was there for an extra day. I remember that much. So yeah, it was crazy, absolutely crazy. But how long they did that for? If you were booked, I think they maybe gave you 24 or 48 hours to get out, in effect, something like that. I guess, but I don't know for sure.
Because I actually watched your kind of vlog series from that one. And if anyone hasn't seen that, I think it's called 7 Days That Shut Down Vegas or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was actually really interesting what you said. Almost right at the end. I think you had Morrissey booked for late June that year, and you said, I'm sure it'll all be over by then. Yeah. And we had a trip booked for the next month as well, after that, and we were convinced it was going to be over by then.
Yeah.
But then it was, 18 months, I think, that the border was shut for us. So how did that impact you, kind of as someone who, has a real love for like Vegas? It's something that we all share in terms of, Vegas is our kind of happy place. And it's almost that, it's where we go to kind of reload the soul a little bit, isn't it? To kind of feed the kind of soul. And so, I mean, what was that like for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I can look at it two ways. I could look at it financially, and as much as I just started doing the Ubering in late January, early February, and this is my main worry, is that basically my banking job has ceased, and I still needed to earn a salary, and Suzanne was talking about lockdowns and the fact that I might not even be able to do that. So the fact that we were locked down, but I could still do the Ubering because they wouldn't stop people doing that, was actually a very good thing. So it allowed me to carry on. And there was actually a fair amount of demand, believe it or not, because of key workers and everything. So that side of it was actually really good. And it was actually quite good to learn that job and the roads of London when there was no one on them, if you know what I mean. So actually that side of it was good. And it meant, and actually not going to Vegas meant we could save some money. And actually, we ended up clearing our mortgage during the lockdown.
It's all positive.
It was like the final bit was cleared off. So there's that side. Then there's this, the Vegas in me, the Vegas lover in me, and I think probably 2020 I wasn't too worried. When it started going into 21. But the big thing that I was really upset about was missing the Circa opening. That was the big thing, really, because obviously Richard had, bless him, had sorted me out tickets for that, and I'd have done anything to go to that. Just to play the VIP for a night on a casino opening in Vegas, black tie, just for once, a bit like going to the Oscars, I guess, for one night in your life. That's the way I saw it, and I'd been so invested in the demolition of Las Vegas Club, and I'd sort of vlogged all of the various stages of Circa opening, and that to me was the biggest thing that really disappointed me, which is probably why I got so emotional when I finally did go back, because it was such a build up of everything. But it was difficult because as with everyone did, you booked trips and then you ended up cancelling them and pushing them back. And in the end, I just stopped booking anything until I just got fed up completely, and then we went via Barbados. But that's a different story.
Yeah, you cheated. You totally cheated.
I got a lot of stick for that. I mean, I did. I was the UK super spreader that was coming to basically.
Really? Oh my god!
Oh god, yeah. There was actually one person, believe it or not, when I actually got back there in September, there was one person who. I mean, obviously with my vlogs, I don't show my face. I show what's in front of me and always have. But this particular person decided that when my voice wasn't muffled enough, I clearly wasn't wearing a mask. And he actually put a whole thread on TripAdvisor, time-stamping every single part of every single vlog throughout the whole week where he felt I wasn't wearing a mask. It's actually true. I mean, in the end, I actually got them to take it down because the whole thread was just so ridiculous. But this is just the sort of thing, you got to sort of put up with, it's just not. But I mean, it was literally paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. That.
Oh my word!
Wow.
Well, we did the same as you. So obviously we'd had when it first hit in 2020, March 2020, we had July booked, which obviously got cancelled. Then I think we rebooked for like the October, and then that got cancelled. And then we said, right, let's leave it till next year, obviously. And then I think we booked again for the March, got cancelled. We booked again for the June, got cancelled. And we were just like, and I mean, I would have liked to have paid off our mortgage while this was going on. But that didn't happen. But I never even thought about you Ubering in London without all the traffic. That sounds perfect. Like,
no, yeah, but it really was. I mean, this isn't Vegas related, but for me as an individual, I just started doing it. And I literally was driving all around London like a ghost town. And I was really learning the ropes. It was almost like doing the knowledge, you were literally learning the ropes. And it was like that, obviously, for months and months. And so I suppose in the early part, back to your original question about how did I feel about not being able to go back, I was actually quite happy just to focus on that. I'd been there that year. It wasn't like I hadn't been recently. I was very keen to sort of get the Ubering thing nailed, and so probably for the first 6-8 months I wasn't that bothered. It was probably after, when it was like, right, I'm enough of this now. I want to go back. That's where it started kicking in, I guess, a bit more. But
I think it was the same with us. We really started feeling it in the 2021 when we just because Vegas is our place, like it is for a lot of people. It's just the place where you can forget everything else that maybe you're struggling with in your life, or that just the daily pressures, the daily responsibilities, the kind of, you've got to be here for a certain time and you've got to be there and you've got to have this done and you've got to do that, and that we kind of never, well, I certainly don't ever get a break from that. Like, it's permanent, kind of 7 days a week. And so Vegas is the one place where we go where we can, that it's that kind of complete escapism. And I know it's kind of well said, and we really struggled without having that escape. We massively did struggle once it kind of was getting longer and longer, and I think it was harder once it started opening up again. I think almost when nobody could go, it was kind of like, well, nobody can go and that's it. But when it started opening up and all of the US or the Canadian vloggers could get there and we couldn't still, and we were being prevented from it, and yet we could see Vegas was kind of going on without us, and we had the holiday booked and we had the money, and we just physically could not get there. I think that was really, really difficult. And then it just happened where we had a trip, because we kept booking them every 3 months in the hope that at some point the border would reopen. It just so happened that,
that was what people did.
Yeah, well, we had one booked in November, and from our point of view, the border opened like 10 days, 2 weeks before we had our trip booked. So it was perfect for us. It also meant we were like one of the first to go back. So we were almost the guinea pigs, right? Well, what do you need? What tests do you need beforehand? What paperwork do you need? What do you need to do online? How do you verify this and whatever? So we ended up doing a vlog about that, just because we knew everybody was having the same stresses as we were. Like, how do we even get there once we've got it booked, But I had a moment, I think I've mentioned this before, but I had a moment similar to yours at Circa, Matt, where we were just so excited to be there once we'd arrived. We were just kind of like, we were like kids at Christmas. We just could not believe. It was like we had to touch things to make sure that we're actually here, like we could not believe that we were back, and we were so happy. And it was more excitement than anything for the first few days. It was just pure like, oh my God, we can do this and we can do that, and we're here again and whatever else. And then we went to a Bryan Adams concert, which we booked, which was at the Wynn, which is, again, we talked about earlier with the woman falling down. And we both like Bryan Adams. We're both Bryan Adams fans generally. But I never cried at a Bryan Adams concert. I just need to get that out there. It's not something that I've ever done before. Even if he sings a really lovely slow ballad, I still don't cry. There's no particular songs he sings that have any meaning to me or anything. I just kind of like the bloke. But he sang, at one point, and it was, it's going to sound really ridiculous, but he sang an a cappella. So it was just him and a guitar. There was not like his band had gone, there was just him. And he sang the Musketeers song, All for One and One for All. Now, again, it's not an emotional song. It's not something you're going to get married to, is it? It's not like, an emotional song. But there was something about just his voice, and it was the fact he was kind of singing about all for one, we're all in this together kind of thing, and there was just something about his voice and the crowds, everybody sang along, and just all of the crowd, the voices, all singing together in one thing. And I literally don't know what happened. I had the phone, I was vlogging it, because I was getting a little bit of different songs. And before I knew it, I was literally sobbing. I don't know where it came from. It came from the gut. And it wasn't just like tears coming down my face. It was like, the ugly crying you do.
There was snot involved. There was a lot of snot, yeah.
And you just got no control over it.
I totally get that, because, again, you missed out on, group events like that. There was no, the group events would have been 6 people. So it's to get in an arena again and feel the emotion of a crowd of people around you, all loving the same thing. That's emotional.
Yeah. It's like, I suppose, if you go to a big football game and they sing the national anthem and everybody's singing around you anyway, that's quite powerful. It was kind of like that. but in that environment. And before I knew it, like I say, it was I was a mess. I was a total mess. But I knew it wasn't the song. I knew it wasn't the person who was singing it. I knew it wasn't anything particular. It was the fact that I was back in the place that I hadn't been able to go to for 18 months. It was that, and I knew it was that, And yeah.
Well, I was actually quite surprised how I reacted when I went to Circa, because the days leading up to that, I'd actually been okay. Obviously I was delighted to be back, and but I was just on a sort of on the crest of a wave, really. I was sort of on cloud nine, I was just enjoying myself. But it was getting there and everything how disappointed I was that I hadn't got there, and also how nice Richard had been to sort of pick me up in a limo, and then he got some guy to meet me out the front and then take me up to the room and show me the room. And it was like, again, it was like, well, you couldn't get here for the VIP opening, but we're going to sort of treat you like a VIP for the day. I just thought it was such a nice gesture. And I couldn't come out of my room because I didn't want to bump into him and be a complete dribbling mess. This was not put on, and I surprised myself because I'm not really that type of person normally. But I was, I had to stay in my room for about 3 hours, and then when I finally composed myself, I went down. And even when I met Richard, I said, "This place is wonderful," and I could feel my voice quivering. I said to myself, "Do not cry because you just look like an idiot," So just hold it together, and then it was fine after that. But but I do think it started off about Circa, but in the end, it was more about getting back to the normal level of freedom, and then and looking back on everything that had happened for the last 18 months. I think it was a build up of emotion around that, and you just think, finally, I can do what I really want to do in life. That's a powerful thing, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
I didn't have a moment, and I thought I would have a moment if I'm perfectly. I was waiting for it all week, but it just never came. So maybe I'm just kind of cold inside or something. I don't know. But there was no moment.
Is he normally Lindsay, or is that just a one-off?
No, he does have his moments, but he is quite he's quite hard-faced, but he's soft inside.
Oh, I can. Well, you're the best hugger officially.
Officially,
clearly, he must have.
Definitely.
I do. I am reaching the point where I'm frightened if I'm just going to be walking around Vegas. I'm just going to be accosted for hugs of random people now. It's kind of got that much behind it now. But the people do ask for hugs now when we meet them. They do properly ask for hugs, and I've always been more of a kind of a handshake kind of guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know where all this hugging thing is actually come from, but if it makes people happy, then why wouldn't I do it?
Absolutely.
I mean, now you go back to Vegas, go as often as you can, but do you think there's still a COVID hangover there, or do you think it's more, other than the staffing levels, which we said, which affects things like how often your room will get cleaned and things like that? But I don't think in the casinos there is. Do you?
No, I think it's very quickly gone back to normal. The only thing I would say, I think the pricing has increased. Whether that's well, I mean, it was directly after COVID, so you would imagine it must be something to do with COVID. Whether, I don't know, or maybe it's just fuel increases or whatever. But that's the only thing I've really noticed a difference of is the cost. A meal at a pool cafe used to be $50. It's now, with tip, near enough $100 for two. I think the food has really increased in price post COVID. That aside, I still think the drink services is probably as hit and miss as it's ever been. You can get great nights where you get loads and nights where you don't get one. Gambling's always been the same. I don't think that's changed. I don't think they've tightened anything up or anything of that nature. So I think now it's pretty much back to normal. I really do.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that I think that because these resorts have been 24/7 for years and years and years, I think it was probably the first chance that they've had to properly kind of pause and assess every single penny that they spend.
Yeah,
and I think that they've cut away a lot of what they decided was waste spend. So in terms of, I think it's a lot harder to get some late night food in Vegas nowadays, because I think that they've just kind of thought themselves, well, we have to pay people more money here if we just closed the place earlier, then we kind of save that money. If do we really need the kind of housekeeping staff that we did? So I do think that they have had a look at like every single penny that they spend.
You're right about the reservations, because I do remember the first couple of trips going back, particularly with Suzanne, you had to book. There was no walking in anywhere. You really had to book. Any restaurant of note you would have to have booked. And we got cancelled once. I can't remember where it was now, but we got cancelled once for no reason. I imagine because they didn't have any staff. That I think now though, I don't think it's so much of an issue. But you are right. I think that they probably had a good, few weeks or months to look at their bottom line and think, right, well, let's take a step back and see what expenditure we don't have to.
It's also it's a ready-made excuse for them, isn't it? So they can come back and they don't have to say we've taken the decision to cut some costs. This is a COVID reason. We're doing this for COVID reasons. It's COVID's fault. It's kind of like it's a way around it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, of course, I mean, like MGM Life seemed to change over to MGM Rewards, which is obviously a lot less value to us. Pretty quickly after COVID. I don't know if that was a result of some kind of a review that they were able to do or something like that. But it certainly seems you get a little bit less for your money there since COVID, I would say.
As if it's going to stop any of us going less, though.
I always think with all of those things, as long as I get free rooms, I can take or leave the rest of it, really. The free play I never seem to win anything on anyway. But I think they did give a lot of resort credit and free play away initially, because during one of my sort of booking and then rebooking, I then had to change the dates, and then they basically wouldn't honour I think they were offering me like 400 free play, and it's now down to my normal 225. So they were initially to try and get people back, offering more free play and stuff, but as soon as they had the numbers there, that soon went by the wayside, which isn't surprising, really.
Well, I think that's been quite interesting, actually, because obviously it has been 3 years, and we kind of almost talk in a pre-COVID, post-COVID world. I think sometimes, generally, not even Vegas-wise, but certainly it was something we experienced. We experienced a little bit. You experienced a lot. And like I said before, let's hope it's something that we never have to experience again. And it never kind of we're never in that situation again, really.
And I also think not just that. I think it's you had that particular week, but then when you started going back with the masks on the plane and the masks in the hotels, and now you're back to no masks. There was this gradual sort of change back to normality, and that was surreal too, in a way, because there was so many conflicting requirements that any sane person could pretty much tell you are not going to make the blind bit of difference. It was all very odd, but thankfully we're through it. But 3 years seems, in some ways it seems like 10 years ago. In other ways it seems like it was 3 weeks ago. It's bizarre. So I would say meeting you guys seems longer than 3 years somehow, and other things just seem very, very recent. I don't know. It's odd.
Yeah, it is. It's just one of those things, isn't it? It's like, I think the further you get away from it as well, the more perspective you get on it, and how things that seemed unnatural were then really natural, and now seem really bizarre again. It's just like it kind of goes like in a full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, the one thing I'm surprised at is how quickly it has been forgotten, and just or ignored, and we don't mention it anymore now.
I mean,
someone made a decision somewhere not to say anything about it anymore. Whereas clearly people still have COVID, but clearly somewhere along the line they decided, right, enough's enough.
It does feel that way, doesn't it? Like we all made a secret vow to each other. We're just not going to mention it. You know, let's just pretend that it never happened, and maybe it didn't. Yeah,
it is weird. It is weird. But anyway,
completely. Anyway, let's get back to Vegas-y sounds. Let's see, because I'm dying to know if Matt was right and if I've won this week.
If you've won with Matt's correct answer, that's what you wanted to find out, is it? Right, I'm gonna play it again.
Yeah,
So
I'm
it's
quite confident actually now. Looking at it again.
So it definitely is high stakes. But the question is, which specific symbol is it in the bonus round? Yeah.
Right.
You know how you get the big symbol in the middle?
Oh, well, no, it's this wild. Wild.
Yeah, it's the wild. It's the kind of showgirl. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. Lindsay, your losing streak is over.
Yay! Matt, I owe you a beer for that. I owe you a beer. Because he would have had my life over. You've never got it. You've never guessed it. So I do need people on my team.
I think it's funny that you think I'm still not going to say that you've never got one, because you haven't got one.
No,
Matt's got one.
No, Matt's on
my
team.
To be honest, I struggled, and I should know that sound. Very
put it this way, that's the first one that I've actually even recognised, like remotely sounded like a slot machine. The others have just sounded like random sounds he's got from anywhere.
So what you're saying, Lindsay, is you'd like them to go back to being harder?
No.
See, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. Anyway, yes, Lindsay, your losing streak via Matt is over.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Matt.
I'm just I'm a bit embarrassed if I hadn't really.
Yeah. We're going to finish with some questions, like we always do. What's made me laugh, and I think he'll like this. So there's a gentleman, now I can never pronounce this very well, there's a gentleman called Hall Caliph, which I'm sure Matt, you know.
Yeah. He's a fellow Sheffield Wednesday fan.
Right. But on the notes that Michael sent me, he's called him Hot Caliph. So, he might like that. So anyway.
He probably will, yeah.
What is the worst thing about vlogging? Let's hand that over to Matt first.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I think in terms of just the actual vlogging, i.e. putting the videos together, uploading them and sharing them on YouTube, I don't think there's anything negative or anything I don't like. That side of it I love. I suppose I no longer have any truly solo trips would be the one thing that it's changed slightly for me in terms of the dynamic of the trips. I mean, Vegas, as with you guys, was always my escape, where sometimes I could land there and literally not have to speak to anyone for a whole week, and actually that appealed. Particularly when I was in the old job, it was like, right, I can sit here, gamble and drink until I fall over, and I don't have to speak to anybody. And I don't know what time it is. I feel so far away from home. I'm not thinking about anything to do with the UK. And obviously, vlogging. I mean, initially it was that. Initially, obviously, when vlogging, no one did it. It was like you just put your videos up, you carried on with your day, and that was the end of it. But I suppose nowadays it's more difficult to have truly solo trips. And that's not to say I don't like meeting people, because I do, but the other option is often not an option anymore. So that's probably one thing. But you can manage it. So it's I think you got to try and balance the group pool nights and the meeting up nights with the nights on your own. And I think I went through probably a couple of years where I struggled with that, but I think the last couple of years I think it's worked pretty well. And also, of course, with Suzanne, she's not really into the YouTube thing, so I have that side to juggle with as well. And some people don't really understand that. They think she's as keen as I am on the whole YouTube aspect. So there's a lot of juggling that goes on, but it does sort of come with the territory. Although sometimes you just want to be on your own, or be on your own as a couple, don't you? And sometimes it's not possible. I don't know.
It's hard to be incognito, I think. I mean, we have it to a very small degree. Like we have nothing like you have, Matt. But we, when the first few times you get recognised, it's like, it's really exciting. It's really, you're like, whoa, people are actually
I would actually disagree with you there. I would say, because it's not always just people that watch the channel. It's all the other channels that are there, which happens almost continuously, isn't it? I mean, you could pick a week in 3 months and there'll be another 5 channels that are there. And if they know you're going, there'll then be a requirement or an expectation that, of course, not a requirement, but an expectation that you'll then meet up. And so you have to manage that whole thing. And I'm not, again, it's all very positive, but if you let it, you could literally go through a whole week meeting different people every 5 hours, 6 hours. And I think that's just, it's incredible how the whole scene has developed from, when I first did it, really just recording for Colin to see Vegas, to where it is now. I mean, you just wouldn't have believed it back then. I mean, it was, it's crazy how it's got to that level, really.
Yeah.
So you just got to balance the whole, and ultimately people have to understand that you're on holiday. This is my holiday. I just so happen to, put the videos up while I'm there, but I want to enjoy my downtime from day-to-day life as you do and everyone else does.
Yeah, I think it's different. Obviously, there are vloggers who are professional vloggers, or the ones that are doing it, and that's it's almost their job as well as their hobby or whatever. Whereas I think there is a difference to people when you're on your holiday, you're having your vacation, and then you're recording it to put out. So yeah, I think there is a little bit different. But like I said, we found it a little bit hard. There's been a couple of times, if you want to be incognito, like, you know what I mean? If you just want to, like, you know what, we're not going to film today, or we're not going to film this morning, we're just going to, and we've done it before where Michael's been standing in a rewards queue and somebody's grabbed a hold of him, or I've been going to the toilet and someone's grabbed a hold of me. But it's nice, like, you like it, but it does sometimes just mean that you can't be completely under the radar sometimes, if you want to be. I would say from my point of view, the worst thing about vlogging is actually the editing. And it's just because I cannot come home and edit. I could not come home and edit at home. I just couldn't do it. I've tried. I mean, put it this way: we vlogged Florida, but nobody knows it yet because the videos aren't out. Because we didn't do it when we were out. I said I'm not gonna. I said we're with the kids. I'm not gonna edit this and put this out while we're there. And 5 months on, they're still not out. I can't put myself back in that zone and put myself back in that space and be like, get the momentum of my kind of diary of the day. So I have to do it when I'm there. And it's not like I hate editing. It's just it's maybe a couple of hours that I have to do, that I kind of have to do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it at all. It's that type of thing. So I would quite happily just film and just put it out there. But obviously, you have to edit it. You have to make sure it follows and it flows and stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, I would say now. I mean, I wouldn't really say that I edit really. I mean, I've always followed the same format. I mean, if you look at them, 5 years ago or now, they're exactly the same. And that really goes back to my love of old television programs. I always used to hate it when someone changed something, whether it was the theme tune or this or that, or the makeup of what it was. And I do what I do, and that's it. If you like it, great. If you don't, fine. But so I think just now I've got more streamlined with it, where throughout the day I just flick the clips in, and I know the bits where I need to mute the sound and put the music in. And I've got my my library of music that I rotate. So really, it is not huge amounts of editing, I wouldn't say now, purely because I'm so used to doing it, really. Although, funny enough, on the first day of any trip, I'm always quite nervous, particularly if I haven't done it for 6 months. It's like, oh shit, I'm out of the habit. But it's amazing, by day 2, you're right back in it again.
Yeah, I'm usually in the airport on the way going out thinking, oh God, how do I vlog again? Like I'm picking the camera up and loading the app and thinking, all right, this is how I do it. But and
there's no doubt there is definitely pressure to create content, and that doesn't mean to say gambling more, but there is pressure to make sure you have a vlog at the end of the day when you go to bed. I mean, I remember when I met Cinnamon this trip, and I did a live stream on her channel, and it went on for couple of hours or something, and I hadn't really done much the rest of the day, and so we got to, like, I don't know, it was probably like 12:30 in the morning, something like that, and Cinnamon said, right, let's go and get fucking pissed, right? And I said, I haven't actually got a vlog for today. I need to do something, record something, and there is an element of that. And actually, it ended up being probably one of the best vlogs of the trip, because I just went out and gambled and won a hand pay and everything was great. But there is a pressure, particularly if you're everyone expects one every day while you're there. So because it doesn't always work that way, does it?
No, I think we were saying that because we used to do day 1, day 2, day 3. We now do part 1, part 2, part 3, and if it happens to go half a day and then half the next day, we'll just do it. We don't generally follow a format where we're kind of do a roundup on the night or a roundup the following morning. We just kind of put out what we've got, if you know what I mean. So we're kind of that's what we've started doing, so that we don't have that pressure. So if we're knackered and we just want to go to bed and we haven't got enough for a vlog, we just record something in the morning and stick that in, and it's the next part.
I do exactly the same. I did it, I think, at least once this last trip, where I thought, right, I want to go to bed now. I'm tired. You know what? I'm just going to make a longer Starbucks run in the morning and just splice it together, and there you go. You know, it doesn't have to be day 1, day 2. It can be, as you say, part 1, part 2. But on the whole, there's nothing I hate. I guess the only other thing really for me is sort of the peripheral stuff around social media and the nonsense that goes on that. And again, that I just think social media's got meaner in general. So I don't think it's anything specifically to do with my channel or necessarily me even, but I just think, you know, if you're posting things, you're going to get comments. It's almost, it's part of the territory now. Whereas certainly when up until probably COVID in a way, I don't think I never had a negative comment. And I just think people have got more angry in general. I really do. And they take that anger out on people, and there's a lot of judgment when people don't know anything about you. But there's huge judgment on very small little things, and that always surprises me.
I mean, that's kind of a part of what my answer would be as well, because I mean, obviously I write for my job, so I've been kind of in the social media kind of sphere, if you like, and I've been very visible on social media for years now, and I feel comfortable with that because I'm very kind of at ease with writing, and I'm thinking, I'm getting judged here on something that I know that I'm extremely good at, and I can hold my own with it. The vlogging, we're obviously becoming a lot more visible on social media, and I feel like when I'm speaking or when I'm being filmed, I can't hold my own as much as I can when I'm kind of writing, and I think it can make you feel quite vulnerable in a way, and you don't really want to come out of something like this feeling that way. You want to do it so that it makes you feel good and that you enjoy doing it, and yet there are people who they seem to want to go out of the way to kind of like tear you down a bit and make you feel bad about it.
Oh no, there is 100%, and that that's increased certainly in the last 3 years, definitely. I wouldn't. I'm not trying to say I'm perfect or anything like that, because I'm not. And we all say things we in the heat of the moment. But I just think there's a lot of it's literally hatred, and this is what I don't get. I mean, it's like hate is a very strong word, and I can't honestly think of one person I actually physically hate, and yet some of the messages you get, you read them and you think, what the hell? What is going on in your life that you feel the need to be so hateful on what is essentially a holiday video?
It is crazy. I mean, we see some of the things that are said, like you say, you just think, what went through that person's head to do that, or what made that person think that was acceptable to say? It is bizarre, and I think obviously what some people would say is, well, you vlog, so you put yourself in that environment, but no, you don't. You know what I mean? You don't. You vlog so that you can share your trip, share your wins. Other people can find out information and whatever else and join in with you. But it can be difficult, I think. Certainly, I think we've been very lucky so far. We've had a lot of support, but we are so much smaller channel-wise, so we don't get in front of as many people. So I think it's very kind of small and supportive community that we've got so far. But it's out there all the time. You see it and whatever else. And I just get the sense sometimes with you, but you kind of do a thing. You could say hello and 10 people will tell you you've said it wrong. It's like...
No, it's 100%. I mean, just recently with the whole group pool thing, it's sort of, this for me, this is at the end of the trip, and I'd gone in the air, and I actually hadn't paid for the Wi-Fi, and and everything had been I had a fabulous week, really fabulous week. And I landed, and as you literally landed, you put your phone on, all these fucking messages come through, and you just think it's almost like someone's, right, he's coming back now, we'll get him. It's that's the way it made me feel. Whether that was the intention, I don't know. But it's like, why even comment on what is basically a whole load of just a whole load of people meeting up for a social event? That's it. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we felt exactly the same.
But I mean, the thing is, we're the same as like everybody else. There are some people's vlogs that we enjoy. There are some people's vlogs that we don't enjoy as much, and we watch the ones that we like, but then we don't say nasty things about the ones that we don't. We just don't watch them as much, but we don't go out of our way to kind of criticize them for it. I can't really understand people who would. No,
it's all got a bit silly, really. I mean, the bottom line with the whole, I'm very grateful for the whole vlog thing in terms of the friends I've made. Okay, you guys 100% in there. Ben, I'm going to miss people out now, but Rob Gocious, Drew Benet, all the people. Everyone knows who they are. Hogan 2 Cent, a whole load of people. And of course, if you meet 20, 30, 50 people, there's going to be a couple that you just don't rub along with. That's it. And that's really all it is. And I just think that's it. Really, it's just part of normal life. It doesn't mean to say one person's bad or one person's good or one person's right or one person's wrong. It's just different personalities, and I've been in a. I have thought of quitting on numerous occasions, but I'm not going to quit. It's like ultimately, if people want to come at me, I'll actually make twice as many videos just to piss you off.
Absolutely, yeah.
Please do, please do. Okay, we've got a few more questions, but I'm actually just we'll just do one more because I think we're going to run out of time. But so this was from a Tory Moorish. Would you rather play all slots but only in one casino, or play only one type of slot but in any casino? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So basically, you can only go to one casino, play everything, or you can only play one slot, but you can go to any casino you want.
I think that one's really, really hard. I think I would get bored stiff if I could only play one slot for the whole trip.
I would agree with you. The only thing I would say is I went to Samstown last trip and I played all the slots I wanted in there. Then I was bored because I was in the same place.
Yeah. Okay. That's yeah.
So I basically went back to Plaza and probably played the same machines, but in Plaza, and it was different.
What about you, Lindsay? What would you do?
Now, I think if you could cheat a little bit, this is to me is like, when they ask you like if you could only have one meal for the rest of your life. Now, I would say pizza, because then you can have different toppings, right? So this is what I would say, because they're not saying you have to have a certain type of pizza. So if I say pizza, I can have different toppings. With this, I would say I would go for the one slot, different casinos, but I'd go for something like Dragon Link. And if I can play the different varieties of Dragon Link, then it's kind of like a Locket Link or like something like that, where if you could play one type, but you can play the different versions of it.
To be honest with you, I could play. Yeah, actually, I will answer this question. I would happily go around Vegas in different casinos playing Dragon Link, even if it was just one of them all night long, quite happily. There you go. I love that game. Yeah. I'm sorry, I would never get bored.
But that's because
I wouldn't get bored.
That's because you win on it a lot more than we do, though. We get bored of the losing on it, I think.
We don't. We don't.
Yeah, the bloody panda. Yeah, I tell you what, if I could only play that, I wouldn't even go to like Vegas. I think.
Yeah.
If I could only play the bloody panda.
We love Dragon Link, and it's one of those
We
things
do,
that you do watch vlogs and you kind of everybody plays Dragon Link, but it's so good, and
Well,
know you're going to get hits.
There's a reason why everybody does, you know?
Yeah, you know you're going to get hits. You know it's going to keep your interest. I mean, most of the time, obviously, occasionally it doesn't, but and then the balls are so lush out there, and and the bonuses are so good. Like you can get, the multipliers and all the different types, and it's just got everything, hasn't it, as a game?
Actually, here's an interesting question for you that I've thought of: is would you say that because you produce a vlog, does that not force you, but does that mean that you think more about the variety of games you play for the content, or do you genuinely play what you would play even if you weren't vlogging?
We genuinely play it, but I'll tell you why. It's to do with Michael more than me. Michael likes to know he likes to know a game before he plays it. Like he likes to know what he's looking for, and he likes to know how it works and what to look out for. Whereas I'm one of these that could randomly sit at a game and just stick, $20 in or $50 in and see and go, oh, that's quite interesting. Whereas Michael's a bit more, he likes to know what he's getting. So he tends to play the games. What he will do is he'll try games that he's seen on vlogs. So if he's seen them on vlogs, and then he can kind of say, oh, that's how they work, that's what I'm looking for, then he'll play them. But if it's a complete random new game and I'm like, oh, let's put it in there, he's like, no. He just goes, no.
I don't like it when I don't understand how I'm losing.
Yeah.
I mean, we never actually win on it. So all I've got left is understanding how I'm losing. And so yeah, Lindsay's right in what she says there. I need to know where my kind of money's going.
Well, I'll be honest, I
Matt?
played Chica Bonita last trip, which I had good runs on, purely because I'd seen it in other people's vlogs since I'd been there in August. So that's a prime example. And sometimes people play things that I've played. I played it because I've seen other people play it, and I think ultimately vlogs are very good for that. It makes you understand the game and know what you want to hit on when you go back.
Do you think that happens with us? Sorry.
Because obviously, Matt, you were a big fan of the plants, weren't you, when you saw Lindsay play it? Yeah.
Well, actually, yes. Funny enough, I didn't play that this time. I was watching people play it, and I kept meaning to go on it, but no one was seeing. I always think, though, this is my theory: is games are never quite the same the second trip. If you've had a really good run on a game, it never quite pays out that second trip. And Huff and More Puff was a bit like that for me this time, and the Chica Bonita sort of overtook it. And it'd be interesting when you go back whether the plant game pays.
Well,
we couldn't get a thing off.
It never has so far. It never has so far, so I can't see why it would start now.
No, it did.
It is funny that, because we got loads of wins on Huff and Puff in March, and then when we went to play it in November, we could not hit a thing. We just couldn't. It hated us. It's just funny, isn't it?
It is weird, yeah. I always think that the new games are slightly looser, and then when you go back, they've tightened them because they're been very popular. That's just my conspiracy theory. I've got no whatsoever.
Well, I think that's probably it. I think we've talked as much Vegas as we can for tonight, but it's been absolutely lovely having you on, Matt.
Oh, no, to be honest. So thanks so much for inviting me. So no, thank you. And
thank you so much for making me a champion of the Vegas Sound.
Champion, dear me! Tell you what, it's going to be a long night after we finish this.
Michael has some difficult ones up his sleeve for next week.
Yeah.
You're not getting one right for months after this.
I know, that's the thing. You make it harder now. Well, I've got to take the glory while I can, anyway. Even though it's not mine.
Matt's glory.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, and we will be having further guests in the future. We've got a couple lined up already, which I'm sure that you will know, but we're keeping them under our hat at the minute. We will see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thanks so much. Take care.